Hello, everyone. How are you? And welcome to another episode of Elden Ring Lore Explained. We're at the big 20 now, somehow. Um, and what a coincidence. This episode is one where we talk about some of the most important things in all of Elden Ring. The final boss, like the final boss, the last phase of the final boss, and the unseen power orchestrating many of the things in the lands between. Today we will be talking about the Elden Beast and the Greater Will. And here with us today we have Ace and Neo.
Hello.
I exist.
It's true, he does. So this video's out a little bit late because I'm bad at time management, and I figured, hey, why don't I just delay this one a little bit and then record the next few episodes like the day after, or a couple days after, so that those are just ready way in advance. Which is hopefully what I'll be able to end up doing. So, for starters, what is the Greater Will? Well, at least in regards to the lands between, it's pretty much God. God in like the Abrahamic sense of it being this formless, all-present thing that we can't see, but has an influence on everything. It's basically the biggest idol of worship in the lands between. You could argue that Marika is worshipped, but more of the religion of Lanedell and the surrounding areas is focused around the worship of the Greater Will. You know, most of the clerics we run into and stuff believe in the worship of the Greater Will and the Golden Order.
That reminds me of Fire Emblem Three Houses.
Interesting.
Because you spend like 10 months or something going to the Church of Saros, and then out of nowhere they reveal like half a year in. Oh yeah, Saros is the name of our saint, not our god. Our god is this person's name.
Right, of course.
Like, you didn't bring
Yes.
every day and you never mentioned their god's name?
Funny how that happens.
My favorite mentally insane movie.
Well, the Greater Will gets mentioned pretty early on. I'm pretty sure you probably hear about it from, like, Corrin. So, like, basically as soon as you get to Round Table, there are probably other items you can get that mention it. The Greater Will is an outer god, which means it's some kind of higher level entity that exists out in the cosmos. And like the other outer gods, it wants to control the lands between for some reason. It seems like that reason may be because it actually created the lands between, or the world, like the planet that we are on in the game, was created by the Greater Will. So, according to the Three Fingers, through Hyetta, the Greater Will created everything by borrowing from something called the One Great, which is presumably the ultimate godhead, like actual god of all of existence, or whatever cosmic force is behind the universe. I'm pretty sure this is the only mention of the One Great, like in the entire game.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
I didn't know that was a thing until the other day either. I was actually doing research for the next video, which will be talking about the Frenzied Flame, and that's when I found that out. So, the Greater Will used this power to create everything. And then, you know, the world timeline kind of happens. You can see all of that in, like, the first 3 videos that we did for this series. And the way that the Greater Will exerts its influence over the lands between is by sending down a shooting star to the lands between that contained a vassal, a servant being that we know as the Elden Beast, which to us is a god. But probably isn't in regards to like the grand scheme of the cosmos and everything. To us it's a god, but to like everything else, like to the Greater Will it's just like, oh yeah, I'm gonna send John from accounting to go.
Because Gideon kind of refers to it as a god, the whole "a man cannot kill a god."
Yeah, though he may have been referring more to Marika than the Elden Beast. Or maybe Marika is a god because of the Elden Beast.
It bothers me about the fact that those who are loyal to the greater will serve the 2 fingers, but those who aren't serve the 3. And I don't know if that's supposed to be a metaphorical that the majority of fingers belong with the heretics.
Well, it's interesting. The 2 fingers are not opposable. They're not able to grasp onto things, whereas the 3 fingers are.
There's also multiple copies of the 2 fingers.
Whereas there's only one 3 fingers that we're aware of.
Up, down, underground.
Yeah,
and
and
it's
it
on fire.
burns away after giving us the frenzied flame.
But it also did it to someone else before.
Yeah, it did it to Vike. This is stuff we'll talk more about in the next video. Not all of it, because I'm probably going to give Vike his own video, because Vike's a pretty important guy, is on the cover of the game and all. So, the Elden Beast is sent down, and it becomes the Elden Ring. Now, the Elden Beast is supposed to be an embodiment of order, specifically the Golden Order, which is the rules of reality exerted over the world by the Elden Ring. Hence how it's an embodiment of order. So pretty much, the world exists, and the Greater Will sends down the Elden Beast to establish rules for this world to operate under. And when it becomes the Elden Ring, it is hosted within beings. In our current era in which the game takes place, it is kept within an Empyrean. An Empyrean is host to the Elden Ring. But back in the day, back in the Age of Stone before the Erd Tree, the Elden Ring was controlled by the ancient dragons, and the Elden Lord at the time was Placidusax, so presumably Placidusax was consort to something, probably their god, their dragon god, which may have been whatever the dragon equivalent to an Empyrean was. Or was an outer god? I'm not really sure. We'll talk about the potential outer gods in the video after next video, which is just going to be about all of the minor outer gods, or, the ones we don't know as much about.
Oh, man, he serves Bahamut.
So, the dragons are able to assert their dominance over the world, and because of that, they are the ones who get to control the Elden Ring. But, eventually, the Erd Tree sprouts. What is the exact reason for this? I don't know. Maybe it is a result of the Elden Beast's presence in the world, like an accumulation of grace or something. It's also possible it was just planted, because we have the minor Erd trees, which come from seeds of the Erd tree, so presumably the Erd tree was planted the same way. And we also see, when we fight the Elden Beast, that there are other Erd trees. Presumably these are Erd trees on other planets, where the Greater Will has sent other Elden Beasts to become other Elden Rings on other worlds.
Yeah, and it's just a general FromSoft thing, because in all 3 of the major franchises so far, Bloodborne, Dark Souls, and Elden Ring, we have at least one location that has a fuck ton of trees in the area.
Oh yeah, that's true. We have Ash Lake, we've got the Hunter's Dream, and then we've got the final boss arena. They really do love that aesthetic, don't they? I mean, it's good, so I can't blame them.
It's a very good aesthetic.
We can refer to the FromSoft pillars of space.
Oh yeah, exactly.
The trees.
So the Erd tree sprouts. Maybe the seed was just planted after a certain point. I know some people have looked at the map and been like, it kind of looks like the Erd tree's in the middle of a giant impact crater. I personally don't see it, but I would believe it, given we have shit like Astel coming from space. Oh yeah. The Greater Will is responsible for destroying the Eternal Cities because the Eternal Cities decided they didn't like the Greater Will anymore. They didn't like being subservient to it or whatever. They tried to create their own lord artificially. So the Greater Will was like, fuck you, I'm gonna throw a space alien at you that's gonna shoot meteors at you until you're underground, because that's how it works somehow.
Apparently, every one of those little enemies is like a fetal Astel.
Which little enemies?
The ones that are like, they look like the, I don't know, like space caterpillar things.
Oh, the
with
rock
arms.
things?
I don't remember exactly, but
Where do you see them?
I'm pretty sure you find them underground, like on the way to this second Astel, the optional one. Which gives you the impression, oh, there's a lot of Astels, but most of them are babies. Like how there's the full-grown Falling Star Beast and the one that's not full-grown.
Yeah, I don't know. I've never understood why Stars of Darkness exists. I've just always thought it's, you know, a lazy reuse of an existing boss. Happens from time to
also,
time.
the Falling Star Beast and Astel have the same forehead thing going
Yeah,
on.
they're very similar creatures. It seems like these stellar creatures. I mean, Astel is referred to as a malformed star, like he's a living meteorite, because it seems like a lot of the stars are glintstone, they're meteorites. Which is interesting. That's actually an inversion of how shooting stars, like people thought shooting stars were like actual stars, but they were actually meteorites. Whereas in Elden Ring, all of the stars are actually just meteorites. Or, you know, it seems like a lot of them are just meteorites. I never thought of that until right now.
Yeah. And, it says, like, how they took away their sky, but they're underground, so when did they ever have a sky?
Apparently they had a black moon at some point. Whatever the
Black
fuck
moon
that
rising?
means. I have no idea. It's possible that the Age of the Stars was a thing that existed in the past, and then didn't anymore. I don't know.
I should probably make the reference, shouldn't I?
Oh, what reference?
Black hole sun, black hole sun.
I don't get the reference.
It's a song called Black Hole Sun.
Who is it by? Who did the song?
It has one of the trippiest music videos ever, where everybody's like having that weird effect on their faces where it stretches out.
Oh, but what band did the song? Who was the artist?
Okay. Hold on.
This is very important live research.
Won't you come? The Soundgarden.
I have literally never heard of it before.
Oh.
This is very deep
Well, it's
lore.
basically about welcoming the apocalypse or something.
Oh, well, that's somewhat fitting, I suppose.
Yeah, a bunch of people staring at the sun turning black in like a meteor shower, and they all get these creepy wide smiles on their faces while they just go about their suburban day.
This sounds like something I would not enjoy watching, but it does sound kind of deep.
No one enjoys watching it, but they have to. It's a 5.5-minute song.
Good God.
But it has a lot to do with, like, the eternal underground cities, I feel like, in that sense.
I guess so. I wasn't expecting a reference on this level, but alright. I'll take it. Why the fuck not?
I am the king of deep-cut connections.
I guess so. Christ, and I thought I was an encyclopedia of useless information.
That's how most people know me.
Damn.
Also, something I wanted to point out earlier. Of all the bosses in the game that, like, give us spiels and monologues and, like, battle dialogue and banter and all that stuff, Marika and Radahn never
You mean
say
Radagon?
a single... Radagon. Marika and Radagon never say a single word on screen.
Yeah, it's true.
The
All of
final
Marika's
boss-
lines are off. Well, that's pretty standard, actually. The final boss speaking has only happened, like, twice in FromSoft games, Gurman and Ishin.
Oh, yeah.
You never even hear their voices.
Oh, yeah, because...
Yeah, that's standard as well. I guess you hear the Soul of Cinder's voice. Oh, you know, if you want to consider Gale the final...
boss of DS2's?
Most of the time, the final
Oh,
boss
you
is the
do
kind of
hear
creature that-
Nashandra. Listen, that just goes to show how forgettable Nashandra is.
Oh,
Oh, and then Aldia speaks. Aldi is also a bit of a forgettable boss, but I give him a
But
pass
most of the
because
final
Aldi is
bosses
great.
are some sort of entity that can't speak. But in the Elden Ring, the final boss is a person who turns into another person that turns into a monster and then turns back into that first person.
But with their head fallen off. Well, you see, Marika and Radagon's body has, like, broken down to such a state. I don't know how capable of speech they would still be. I'm not even sure how conscious Radagon is at this point, which, actually we can get into right now. So, in the Age of the Erd Tree, the Greater Will chooses Marika to be host to the Elden Ring, and Marika decides to remove the Rune of Death from it, so no one dies. And instead their souls are just recycled through the Erd Tree. They introduce a cycle of reincarnation into the world. Presumably this is so that the Greater Will can just continue having control over and access to all of these souls. It's probably the reason it's cool with that. Because it seems like a Golden Order without the Rune of Death is what the Greater Will wants. So it's totally fine with what Marika was doing this whole time. It's totally chill with it. Then, of course, we have the Shattering, which the Greater Will was not cool with. Not a fan of that. And then bound Marika within the Erd Tree as punishment. Actually, perhaps planting the Erd Tree was done as like a... What's the word I'm looking for here? It was done as like setup for Marika taking over and removing the Rune of Death. So then that would be there as the vehicle for recycling souls. Perhaps. It was very pissed about the whole Elden Ring shattering thing, but interestingly enough, Radagon being a separate entity from Marika, yet inhabiting the same body, is still loyal to the Golden Order. So, when we defy the Greater Will and light the Erd Tree on fire and unseal the Rune of Death to get in there, I'm not sure if it's Radagon fighting us. Like, Radagon gets up, his body is mostly crumbled, and he has...
an arm.
Yeah, and he has the Elden Ring inside of him. I don't know if that's him, or if that's the Elden Beast controlling him. Because at this point, there's like... He's a hollow being. He's like a shell. There's nothing in there except for the Elden Ring. I know he's like an Empyrean now. He's like a god, basically. But he doesn't seem to have what it would take to still be like a functioning creature. So he may be kind of like a puppet. And this may be even further supported by what happens after we kill him, which is the Elden Ring kind of dissipates and then reverts back to being the Elden Beast, which then turns Radagon's body into the Sacred Relic Sword, and then uses it to fight us. So at this point, Radagon's more like an inanimate object. He's more like a doll made out of clay or something that the Elden Beast just shapes into something else.
Well, that would explain why some people ask about his very confusing motivations to even fight you at that point.
Yeah.
Because you're trying to bring the ring back together, but he doesn't want you to. Maybe
because Marika was locked within the Erd Tree as punishment. It was intentional. But then it seems like... I think Marika banished Godfrey and created the Tarnished because she knew that when this moment came that she would be locked away for shattering the Elden Ring, the Greater Will would be like, shit. We need to have someone come and fix this. All of the demigods are fighting each other. Let's call fucking the Tarnished back. Give them back their grace. And one of them can become the new consort and fix the Elden Ring for me. But then Marika, still being connected to the Elden Ring, was able to exert influence over the Erd Tree and grow the impenetrable thorns. So we get there, and we can't get in. And the only way to get in is to burn the Erd Tree with the Flame of Ruin, which the Greater Will's not cool with, which is why when we go back to Round Table, the Two Fingers are like, give me a few thousand moon cycles to contact my supervisor, and then I'll get back to you on the next course of action.
Kind of hilarious that the lady is like, you may do whatever you wish to do, but even if you betray the greater will, we will remain when you are gone. And then you come back 10 minutes
And
later
she's fucking dead.
And the Two Fingers are just going to be erect forever now.
I guess so. Sheesh. They should talk to their doctor about that or something. What are the Two Fingers exactly? I don't fucking know. They communicate with light. Either they're a conduit. They seem to be something created by the Greater Will for the purpose of communicating with us mortals. They seem to have been around since, like, the fucking Stone Age. And I don't mean like the Age of Stone for the Giants. I mean like when humans started crawling out of caves, based on that one ring we can find in Liurnia. And they were like double Two Fingers that could walk around like the fucking thumb things from Spy Kids. They're really gross and weird. They are gross.
Also worth noting that, something, what was I gonna say? I don't know how to, it's funny how, like, they locked her in there, and then she locked herself in there even harder, and then both the Greater Will and Marika were both just screwed by their own actions.
Yeah,
like
well, it's like when your parents tell you to go to your room, and then you lock the door. Like, they didn't tell you to lock the door, but now you lock the door, so now you've locked yourself in your room, so they're like...
And then they couldn't even kick her out.
Yeah, because you have a steel door.
They couldn't kick Marika out of the tree, and she couldn't leave the tree if she wanted, so she just
Marika basically did the equivalent of the "Don't tread on me" snake holding a hand grenade and saying, if you fuck with me, I swear to God I will kill all of us. In fact, that is basically what she did. Was just like, well, I don't like how this is going, fuck all of you.
He's being crucified, like, floating in the air when you get there.
Yeah,
How did she suddenly get free when you walk in, though?
Convenience. I don't know.
Like, either she chose to stay like that, or the Two Fingers, the Greater Will thought it'd be better if you fought instead of
your mic's getting a little fuzzy there for a second. What I think it is it's because Radagon took over, and that's probably the Greater Will taking over, and being like, this motherfucker just committed the first cardinal sin. I want this twink obliterated now. And then that doesn't really work. I mean, it kind of works out for a little bit, because Radagon has kind of a hard boss.
He's got a hammer and one arm.
Yeah, but, you know, it doesn't work out in the end. So, yeah, I think what happens is you defy the Greater Will by burning down the Erd Tree, and as such, when you get in there, the Greater Will's fucking pissed, so it's like, hey, Radagon, go kill that asshole. And then Radagon gets murked, so then it's like, shit. Elden Beast, kill that asshole. And then you kill the Elden Beast, and then the Greater Will's like, shit. I have no real way to assert my authority over things anymore.
But you could just choose to keep the status quo as is.
You could. Or you could decide to change things for the better or worse. You could even choose it. You could even choose it to make it even more in line with what the Greater Will wants if you do the Gold Mask quest line.
Well, more in line with what the Greater Will should be.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Oh, Christ. I'm trying to think of a good comparison for that. It's like Corrin and Gold Mask hold the Greater Will to a higher standard than it holds itself.
Yeah, it's like people who read the Constitution and they realize, oh, either we need to be exactly liberal and literal with every word, or interpret it to update with the times. And those are two of the endings of the game.
Oh, yeah, I guess so. Shit. That's actually a really good comparison. So, yes. It seems the Greater Will is like all-seeing and all-knowing, but not all-powerful, because it has to make other things do stuff for it. Why was it able to send Astal after the Eternal City? Because Astal was in fucking space, and the Greater Will lives out in space or something. It's a cosmic entity. So it can just be like...
It is a dead version of the Two Fingers.
Hmm?
We did see a dead version of the Two Fingers.
We see
rotting.
many dead versions of the Two Fingers.
Exactly.
Yeah, so it has to make these gross finger things to talk for it. It needs these blind old women to translate for it. It has to send a big space jelly dragonfish in order to actually exert its will over things in the material world. It's kind of a
And then
shitty
Radahn-
god, all things considered.
Radahn by himself was able to completely stop the Greater Will from sending anything else to Earth.
You could argue it was stopping the greater will, but you could also argue it was stopping other beings. I think it was more so like shit with the moon, because that was stuff specifically related to the Carrion royalty.
Like, specifically, when you undo the Radahn's abilities, a falling star beast shows up, which we assume the Greater Will sends. But it couldn't show up until you defeated Radahn. And
Where
you
does
just
the
said
where does the
most of
falling
stuff
star
we
beast
do-
show up?
It shows up in Limgrave right after you kill Radahn. We see the thing fall from the sky and leave a crater.
No, but there's a crater left there, and that's how you get into Nokron. I didn't think there was a falling star
That is
beast.
how you find out about Nokron.
Yeah, that's how you get into it.
Yeah. But you say the Greater Will can only really influence things by sending stuff from space.
I mean, pretty much, yeah.
And Radahn stopped anything from coming down from space.
No, I don't see one in Limgrave. It didn't send a falling star beast. It just sent a giant meteor. It just sent a meteorite. But that wasn't the greater
Meteor
will.
was the falling star beast.
That was the moon. Because all of this causes the sequence of events that leads to the Age of Stars, which is when the moon takes things over.
You fight the falling star beast in the crater, though.
No, you fight a falling star beast on a crater on top of a mountain in Mount Gelmir.
Ace, I'm pretty sure Ace is getting like 2 locations mixed up.
Yeah, you fight a
Yeah,
falling star beast in a crater in Mount Gelmir. And then there's another one you
There's
can
more
fight
than one
in
near
Celia.
Yeah,
Oh.
there's one in a cave. There's the one in Mount Gelmir.
Yeah, Mount
And
Gelmir.
there's the one near, and then there's the one near the gates of Lindell.
Oh, right, there is one in Langdell. I've never fought that one. I've never
Yeah.
run into it.
I saw one video theorize that Astel was actually a fucked up version of what should have been another falling star beast.
Yeah, that may be the implication, considering he's called a malformed star. Like, he's not supposed to look like that.
Exactly. It's almost
Um,
like the end of Shin Godzilla.
oh, a little, I suppose. So yeah, basically, the greater will is not. It's a greater will, and that's all about it. It's a will to do things without the power to do it. So it has other stuff do things for it, and that takes the form of the Elden Beast, which is responsible for basically everything. Clearly, Marika maybe got tired of being host to the Elden Beast, and maybe that's why she orchestrated the Shattering and whatnot. But yeah, that's pretty much all about the Elden Beast and the Greater Will. It's pretty
There is
interesting
one
stuff.
more question.
Oh,
though.
you do have one more question? Well, let's hear it.
Did you kill the Elden Beast or tame the Elden Beast? and
You
be
kill.
able to yourself?
That's actually a good question because the Elden Ring still exists, but it says God
Did you see,
slain.
like,
Yes.
the Elden Beast is
Just
actually
say God
based on
slain.
something.
Yeah. Isn't it based? I know. I've heard it's based on like what is it? The Celtic dragon god thing that's like responsible for the existence of the islands. Like its body makes up the islands. And isn't it also based
That's
on like
weird.
the dragon in alchemy?
It's got like the weird neck thing.
Yeah, it's got a big long weird neck and no real head, just like a star.
Yeah.
I don't remember these exact details. This is just shit I've heard it compared to in the past. I think I was actually told this on stream, where it was like, this is like something in Celtic myth, because of course it is. Pretty sure it was Celtic. Either Celtic. Gaelic has its own mythology, right? It's not just a language? Or is it just Celtic?
I thing.
Well, there's the Ulster cycle, and there's like the founding of the area, and like in Celtic, most of the quote unquote gods are just like mortals that don't die of old age usually.
Mm-hmm.
So you can like just ascend to godhood by being really good at stuff, and then the fairies get involved. But then they tried to Christianize it and make it so, oh, every time Christianity affects a religion, they got to remove all mentions of gods or magic that aren't related to Allah or the devil.
I
So it
see,
got
yeah.
really messed up in all the translations.
That makes sense.
If you want to know more about it, you can watch a video on overly sarcastic productions on the subject.
Well, if you guys are interested in that, you should go do that. But anyway, that's all for today's video, I guess. If you enjoyed, please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and click that notification bell so you don't miss any of my future Elden Ring uploads. Our next few videos will be talking about more of the outer gods, and the next one will be talking about the opposite to the Greater Will and the Elden Beast and the Two Fingers, that being the Flame of Frenzy and the Three Fingers. So, definitely be sure to subscribe so you don't miss that when it comes out. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you next time. Until then, take care. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.